Hi, welcome to Interpreting Your Bylaws for Regions. My name is Pat Acetato, and I'm the Bylaws Coordinator for New York State PTA. So what are bylaws and why do we need them? Bylaws are designed to help the group function in an orderly manner. Your bylaws include all the rules that the organization considers so important that they cannot be changed without previous notice and cannot be suspended. Every member of your board should have a copy of your bylaws and they should be familiar with them. You must update your bylaws at least once every 3 years for a region to remain in good standing. Up-to-date bylaws are required as per IRS 501c3 regulations. So how do we understand what it all means? That's what this workshop is all about. What are these symbols? Throughout your bylaws, you're going to see a hashtag and a star. A hashtag indicates compliance with New York State PTA. A star indicates compliance with national PTA bylaws. So let's start with Article 1. Simple enough. This article states the name of the region and establishes that it is a constituent association of New York State PTA and national PTA, and has been established to facilitate the administration of the affairs and programs of New York State PTA. Article 2. Article 2 states the documents under which the region PTA is incorporated under New York State PTA. These would be your bylaws and your articles of incorporation. Article 3. Section 1, the purposes of the association explain the reasons and goals for which all PTAs function, and this is the same throughout unit and council and region bylaws. Section 2 of Article 3 outlines how we will go about accomplishing those purposes. And Section 3 outlines the federal status under which the organization operates, 501c3 of the IRS code. Article 5 describes Article 4 describes the policies that set us apart as a 501c3 organization. Please note in particular, A, that PTA shall be non-commercial, non-sectarian, and non-partisan, and D, our commitment to inclusiveness and equity and a knowledge of PTA. Now we're on Article 5. Article 5 states the authority under which the PTA is chartered, and it covers all the rules that bind a region PTA to New York State PTA and national PTA. Sections 1 and 2 prescribe the region's obligation to comply with the bylaws of New York State PTA and national PTA under its charter. Sections 3 and 4 prescribes the terms of adoption of the region bylaws. Okay, Caitlin, I messed up. I went too far. I went too fast. Got to go back. I'm going to start from the beginning again. Okay, Caitlin, I'm ready to start again. Timer on. Hello, and welcome to Interpreting Your Bylaws for Regions. My name is Pat Acetato, and I'm the New York State PTA Bylaws Coordinator. So what are bylaws and why do we need them? Bylaws are designed to help us function in an orderly manner. The bylaws of the association include all the rules that we consider so important that they cannot be changed without previous notice and cannot be suspended. Every member of your board should have a copy of the bylaws, and they should also be familiar with them. Your bylaws must be updated at least once every 3 years to remain in good standing. And up-to-date bylaws are required as per IRS 501c3 regulations. So how do we understand what it all means? That's what this workshop is all about. What do these symbols mean that you'll see throughout your bylaws? A hashtag indicates compliance with New York State PTA bylaws, and a star indicates compliance with national PTA bylaws. So Article 1, simple enough. This article states the name of the region and establishes that it is a constituent association of New York State PTA and national PTA, and has been established to facilitate the administration of the affairs and programs of New York State PTA. Article 2 states the documents under which the region PTA is incorporated under New York State PTA. Article 3 are the purposes of the association. Under Section 1, it explains the reasons and goals for which all PTAs function. And this is the same in unit bylaws, council bylaws, and region bylaws. Section 2 of Article 3 outlines how we will go about accomplishing these purposes. And Section 3 outlines the federal status under which the organization operates, which is 501c3 of the IRS code. Article 4, Principles, describes the policies that set us apart as a 501c3 association. And I would like to draw your attention to A, which says we shall be non-commercial, non-sectarian, and non-partisan, and D, which states our commitment to inclusiveness and equity and a knowledge of PTA. Article 5 states the authority under which the PTA is chartered and covers all the rules that bind a region PTA to New York State PTA and national PTA. Sections 1 and 2 prescribes the region's obligation to comply with the bylaws of New York State PTA and national PTA under its charter. Article 5, sections 3 and 4 prescribe the terms of adoption of the region bylaws. Section 5 prescribes the requirements of membership for board members. To serve as a region board member, an individual must be a member of a local PTA. Section 6 prescribes the requirement that members of the nominating committee be elected. Article 5, Section 7 prescribes the requirement to include an article on amendments in the region bylaws. Section 8 prescribes that amendments made to bylaws at the state and national PTA levels that impact a region PTA bylaws are automatic amendments to the region PTA bylaws. No vote is required by the region PTA for these types of changes. Section 9 prescribes that any item indicated with a hashtag must be included in region bylaws, as these are provisions that correspond with and are required by New York State PTA. Article 5, Section 10 prescribes the responsibilities and obligations of the region to the local, state, and national PTAs. Article 5, Section 11 prescribes the requirements of membership for officers and board members. To serve as an officer or a board member, an individual must be a member of a unit within the region. Section 12 prescribes the responsibility of the region for compliance of units and councils within the region. And Section 13 requires that region bylaws include a provision that prohibits voting by proxy. A proxy vote is a ballot cast by one person on behalf of another person, not allowed in PTA. Section 14 prescribes the responsibility of the region to report its activities to New York State PTA. Article 5, Section 15 prescribes the requirements related to the maintenance of financial records. Continuing with Article 5, Section 16 prescribes the authority of New York State PTA to reorganize or dissolve a region PTA. And Section 17 prescribes the obligations of the region PTA upon dissolution by New York State PTA. Article 6, members and funds. Article 6, Section 1 prescribes the counties whose PTAs are assigned to the region. So each region PTA will list those counties, region bylaws. Section 2 prescribes the commitment of the New York State PTA to provide funds to the region for region activities. This is commonly known as the state allotment. Article 6, Section 3, members and funds. Section 3 prescribes the term of an honorary life membership. Please note the highlighted section. An honorary life membership does not give an individual the rights and privileges of a member. It is an honorary award. Dues must still be paid by an individual to be entitled to participate in the business of a PTA. Article 7, officers and their election. Article 7 prescribes the officers to be elected, when the election is to be held, election of the nominating committee, who may be nominated, the voting process, the term of office, and when the term begins. Anything in bold would be choices made by the region when voting on their bylaws. Section 2A will prescribe the officers for your region. Section 2B identifies the region director as the state representative in the region. This is an important clause. Many times people do not realize that the region director is a New York State PTA representative within the local region. Section 2B through 2F prescribe the election month, the term of office, the term limits, and conditions. Article 7, Section 3 describes the makeup of the nominating committee. Please note the word elected. The nominating committee is elected, not chosen. Also in this section is the charge of the committee, the ability of members of the committee to be nominated for a position, and the requirement of consent from the nominees. This section also goes on to prescribe the reporting requirements for the nominating committee, and you may have an optional section requiring prior notice to run from the floor. Article 7, Section 4 prescribes how vacancies are to be filled. Article 8, duties of officers. Due to limited time, I'm not going to review each of these individually. If you have any questions on interpreting any of these sections, contact your region bylaws chair or myself for assistance. While all region bylaws, Article 9, duties of assistant directors. While all region bylaws have this article, not all regions fill the positions of assistant directors. Section 1 prescribes the duties. Section 2 prescribes the term and term limits. Some of the larger regions have additional verbiage in this section, which allows longer consecutive terms with restrictions. Article 10, the Region Board. Article 10, sections 1 through 3 describe who is on the board and eligibility to be a board member. Some regions have additional members on the board, such as special assignees or youth members. Article 10, Region Board, Section 4, describes the responsibilities of the Region Board. Please note attending workshops and governing the affairs of the regions, planning and conducting workshops and conferences, all very important points. Article 10, Region Board, sections 4 through 8, prescribes the parameters for regular and special meetings of the board and the required quorum to conduct business. Article 11, the Executive Committee, sections 1 and 2, prescribes who is on the Executive Committee and the duties of the Executive Committee. Article 11, section 3 through 5, prescribes the details of meetings and special meetings of the Executive Committee and the required quorum. Article 12, Committees, sections 1 through 3 prescribe the creation of committees and special committees and the appointment, term, and responsibility of chairs. Article 12, Committees, sections 4 through 6 prescribe required special committees and reports. Please note for section 6, an audit is required by regulations governing not-for-profit corporations in New York State. Section 7 prescribes the quorum for committee business, and Section 8 prescribes that the region director is an ex officio member of all committees, with the exception of the Nominating and Audit Committee. Ex officio means a member of a body who is part of it by virtue of holding another office. So due to the fact that they are president, they are an ex officio member except for the Nominating and Audit Committees. And they should always be included in committee notices of committee meetings. Article 13, Region Meetings, Section 1, prescribes the parameters of the annual meeting, the notice required, the eligibility of delegates, voting eligibility, and the required quorum to conduct business. Article 13, Region Meetings, Section 2, prescribes the special meetings and required notice. Article 14 prescribes the fiscal year. The fiscal year of the region is the same as New York State PTA's fiscal year, which is July 1st to June 30th, in accordance with IRS regulations. Article 15 outlines specific operational requirements under the region's charter with National PTA and New York State PTA. Section 1 prescribes limitations on the distribution of earnings to individuals. Section 2 prescribes the exempt activity rules that must be followed under our IRS exempt status. Section 3 prescribes the rules governing political activity of the region, and Section 4 prescribes and reiterates the surrender of assets upon dissolution of the region. Article 16, Parliamentary Authority. Article 16 directs all issues not covered in the bylaws to Robert's Rules of Order, newly revised. Oops, sorry, I didn't go forward for that. Okay, this is Article 16, Parliamentary Authority, which I just explained. Article 17, Amendments. Requirements for submitting bylaws for state approval and for amending bylaws are listed in Article 17. I'd like to thank you all for attending this workshop. I hope this helped you understand your bylaws better. And I ask you to please take the time to review your region bylaws in depth. Go over every section. If you find you need further clarification or more information, please contact me at bylaws@nyspta.org. And I do believe we have time for questions, so we can move on to some questions and answers. And again, thank you for attending.